This is the video everyone has been looking forward to, and it's about the Decware Zen triode amplifier. So before we go into the specifics, let's have a look at where can we place this amplifier within the EL84 6BQ5 amps. So the Zen, it's a single tube triode amplifier and about 2 watts output per channel. And if you are looking for other single-anted 6BQ5 EL84s, one example for that is the Audio Note Auto, which has 2 tubes in parallel per channel, and they run them not in triode mode but in pentode mode, and that gives you 10 watts per channel, which is 5 times as much as the Zen. So if you are familiar with the Zen, then you can imagine that the Auto has about quite a bit more bite and grunt than the Zen. And so without further ado, let's continue. This is how the Decware Zen looks like. And I have to tell you guys before we go any further that I have actually never heard the Decware Zen. So I think now half of my viewers are leaving this video. Why are we looking at this thing if the guy hasn't even heard what's going on about? However, this is the reason why you should stay and watch this video, because I have been living with low power amplifiers for 20 years, and me and my friends, we have built a bunch of them. We used mainly Darling amps and 13EM7 spot amps, and all of those are lower power than the Decware Zen. So I will tell you my experience is how to live with an amplifier like the Decware Zen when you have 2 watts or less than 2 watts available. What can you expect from it? And I believe for most of you who are watching this video, you do not need a testimony from me about the Decware Zen sound. Just look up YouTube. There's like a bunch of people talking about it. Look it up on the forums. There's hundreds and thousands of reviews written on it. There's absolutely zero need to add one more to that. However, there is one burning question for everyone is, are my speakers going to be good enough to drive them? Or what kind of speakers can it drive? And so without further ado, let's look into that. So going back to their website, this is how the current iteration looks like. It has a 6DJ8 input tube and the EL84 pentodes, plus it has a rectifier tube. And you can see the power transformer behind everything, and the output transformers are inside the chassis. They are really tiny output transformers. However, in this case, I would not say that this is a bad thing, because it doesn't use just any generic output transformer. Steve uses his own transformer. I'm not sure if they made it or they had someone make it for them, but it's fully optimized for this amp, and that is one key of the secret sauce to this amplifier. So let's have a look at the description that they have on the website. You can see a couple reviews. There's someone reviewing, and it says that I have tried a speaker 89 dB sensitivity, and this amplifier, the Zen, drives it really well. So here I can add my 2 cents to that, that if you have less than 2 watts, which I have in one of my amps, and I've been using about a watt and a half to drive loudspeakers, which is not even 89 dB, which is 86 dB. Let's have a look at what that was. It was the Mirage 760. And here, this is something really critical that you need to know, that the dB rating alone will not tell you the whole story, whether those loudspeakers will be easy to drive or hard to drive, whether 1 watt or 2 watts will be enough. But I can tell you that in the case of the Mirage 760, which looks like this, that's the back side, it has 2 ports in it, and that's how the front side looks like. Basically it's a 2.5 way design, so 2 8-inch woofers, and they for the mid bass, and they are outputting the same signal, so they do not have different crossovers on them, and the 1-inch dome tweeter. And if you are looking for these, you can find them on eBay or used around $200, $300, $400, $500. It's really cheap. Of course, you will need to upgrade your crossover, which will be maybe a few $100. Maybe you can get by even $100. I have a video on it, how to upgrade your crossovers if you are on a budget for the Mirage. And that will give you a pair of loudspeakers which, as my buddy commented on them, who has heard a tremendous number of loudspeakers currently, he said their sound, driven by my 1.5 watt power amp, is comparable to current production $10,000 new price loudspeakers. So if you have a Decware Zen, that will have even more power than that, and the Mirages are highly recommended for such low power amplifiers. And is also a testament that if you have lowish sensitivity loudspeakers, and you do not absolutely have to listen to at ear-splitting volumes, but you normally listen to moderate volumes, but sometimes you want to rock out a little bit more, the Mirage will do it for you. And just what 1.5 watts with the Mirages could do for me, they could rock out a Cranberries concert. And not just rock out, not just play it, but play it at so that it gave me a feeling that I am in a real punk concert. That brought me back memories of my friend playing in a garage. But it wasn't just a garage, but it was really a biggish venue, and they played rock music, and after them there was a punk band who started playing, and this album with the Mirage and 1.5 watts gave me back that visceral feeling and the impact of it. So, and I also need to add that I haven't heard any loud, and I would say any refined or fancy audiophile system play Cranberries well. So this is not a question of how many watts you have, but a question of whether your amplifier is refined enough to play a rock concert for you. Because today, when we listen to reviews and when what people use to test their audio systems with, people tend to listen to very simple music, where there's only a few voices there and very little going on in the background, and when you have a rock concert, there is no background basically. There's just so much sound, and when you have that kind of sound density, then it puts tremendous demands on your system, and you would be very surprised that that a properly built 1 or 2 watt system and speakers that match well with them can follow this type of extremely difficult material without a hitch, and at a volume level that, as I said, reminded me of the emotional visceral impact of the live concert. So, but I also need to tell you guys that do not think that any loud sensitivity speaker will work. I would say the Mirage is more of an exception with its 86 dB than it isn't, because you also need to factor in the size of the loudspeakers. So the Mirages are 3 cubic feet, about 3 cubic feet, around 90 liters free air volume, something like that. And if you have bookshelves which are about the same sensitivity but much less free air volume, that will not produce that type of visceral bass with this low power. So I would say that if you have a lower sensitivity loudspeakers but they are floor standards, they will give you absolutely big sound with the Decware Zen, even if they are lowish sensitivity. So going back to the Zen site, now let's go through what they describe about. So it says basically there's only one capacitor and 2 resistors in the signal path. It means that it's not mucking up the sound with cluttered parts. I'm not going to go into details on that. So it's a Class A design. They make their own output transformers. It's single-ended, well, not triode, but single-ended tetrode amplifier or single-ended pentode amplifier, because these tubes are truly pentodes, but they are connected in triode mode. So yes, we can say it's a single-ended triode. Can handle dips down to 1 ohm. Well, I'm a little dubious about that because it doesn't have any feedback. I would say do not try to force Wilson Audio Chronosonic on it, but any normal loudspeaker will work that doesn't dip too low. I would say I myself would not put anything that dips lower than 4 ohms, but going to the other side, I would recommend as high impedance loudspeakers as you can get if you have a choice. If don't, then just use whatever you have, but if possible, look for 16 ohm loudspeakers, because the higher the loudspeaker impedance, the better sound you will get, and there's no way around it. So it had many revisions, over 6,000 people are using it, and so on. And this is crucial: point-to-point wiring with no circuit boards. And I would say this is truly key. And to me, serious amplifiers start here, when they are point-to-point wired and there's no circuit boards. Because if you put in circuit boards and then part of the signal is going through those really junk traces on the circuit board, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to add that low quality copper mucking up the sound. What else? Uh, you can use the Russian tube or the EL84. I never tried the Russian version. Let's see, 6922 dual triode input tube. That's a pretty decent input tube. It has a pretty low plate resistance, and it's pretty high current, so it means that it's like a little powerhouse driving the output tubes. And no negative feedback, giving you unlimited soundstage depth. What on earth does that mean? So what I have experienced is when you add negative feedback, then the soundstage depth starts shrinking. So that's what Steve is talking about here, that they are not using any negative feedback, so you have a really deep sound stage, and I can confirm that. Floating output stage, you can bridge it. Alright, there's nothing special about that. This is a really good thing that there's a volume control in it, additional source, so you can use it as an integrated amp. And now this is really key. This is very important, that the output stage is self-biased. And Steve writes that it's 100% stable, making bias runaway and premature tube failures obsolete. And there are no tedious adjustments, making this amplifier virtually maintenance free. And this is important because a lot of people are scared of tube amps because you have to bias them, and how does that work, and people don't want the hassle of that. They just want to turn on the amp and it's okay, go and use it. No fussing around. And self-biasing is a way to get around this, because the tube does it for itself and you don't have to worry about it. Why? I will explain this in a separate video. For right now, I am confirming what Steve says. If a tube is self-biasing, that makes operation very safe. And I would say about 80-90% of the problems with tube amplifiers are when the output tubes are not self-biasing, when they are fixed biased. And if there's some problem with the bias circuit, then boom, in best case scenario your tubes get cooked, and in your worst case scenario your output transformer and your power transformer both blow. And that's how poorly designed tube amplifiers end their lives. And here we are not talking about that. And I congratulate Steve for making this choice of making it self-biased. In my opinion, it sounds much better than fixed bias. Me and my friends, we always convert our amps to self-bias. This causes a little loss of power. So if you have the same high voltage, then running a tube in self-bias mode will get you 10, 15, 20% less output power. But despite of that, you will have like a better, quieter, blacker background, and the tube will be much more happier. There will be no strain in the sound. So what else? What do we have? Successfully driven loudspeakers from 90 to 100 dB. Yes, I can conquer that with this power range. This anything 90 plus will work with pretty decent output volumes, and not just volume, but good body and weight. And if you are wondering, if you have a 100 dB loudspeaker, what are the wattage requirements for that? My loudspeakers are 100 plus dB and driven by 1/3 of a watt amplifier. Yes, you heard it right. 0.33 watts per channel. And with that I'm getting 99 dB peak output. And what is that enough for? If you look at this Candos label Uno Clami CD, it is modern classical music, and it has a brutal dynamic range going from the quietest passages, and it shifts into utterly brutal, loud, and super busy passage when basically the orchestra is fighting with the timpani, like whether the kettle drum is winning or the strings is just beyond brutal. And 1/3 of a watt with 203 dB efficient loudspeaker will give you an experience that's the same energy, same volume as a third row seat in a real live orchestra. What else? Here it recommends speakers with Fostex, louder drivers, Klipsch and others. I cannot tell about Klipsch. I haven't heard any of them, but I heard several loudspeakers. 2 watts with a louder, man, that's brutal. It will go so loud. It's crazy. With Fostexes, I have been living with a Fostex speaker that's 95 dB efficient, and 1.5 watts with that kept me happy for 2 decades. That's and not just happy. With that combination, with the 1.5 watt per channel Darling amp and the Fostex speaker, I had an experience where the Beethoven Ninth Symphony was a better sonic experience than the real live concert I heard just before listening to it on the system. It was a few dBs quieter than at the symphony, but the dynamics was better than live at the symphony, and the bass, the weight, high frequency, that sort of stuff were better than at the live venue. So if you have been worried about what the 2 watts can do for you, then please do not be worried about it anymore. If you have 90 dB plus loudspeakers, you will be in heaven. If you have 100 dB plus, then you really have to watch your volume control, because your neighbors might call the cops on you if you turn it too loud. If you have lower than 90 dB, it depends on your speakers. As I said, with the 86 dB floor standard Mirage, I could live with 1.5 watts driving them, and I would be 100% satisfied. Even with Cranberries concert or Uno Clami, even with the Mirage, this is just an extraordinary, exhilarating experience. So thank you for tuning in. I don't know, this does it all the time. Extra slide for you. And that was teaser for the next episode. Please like and subscribe. Bye bye.